Hey, welcome back to Power by 8 Racing YouTube channel. I am going to start part 2 of the alignment mini series, but this is a mini series of gee whiz, not so much as gospel. I know enough to get myself in trouble and enough to get my alignment right, and you can use these as just a guideline to what you need to do to get your car. But as far as an in-depth look at how the alignment works and why it works the way that it works, don't ask me. Jump to like Kyle Engineering or those other guys that know a lot about this stuff. Anyways, what I'm going to do is, I think I left off, I went ahead and disconnected the other side of the sway bar. The reason for that is it just makes adjusting the camber and the lower control arm a little bit easier. So I went ahead and removed both sides of the sway bars just to make the adjustments easy. I also set up a quick exercise. I gave myself some extreme settings so that we have some data to change, and I can go through and show you how I will get to my end results, which is going to be somewhere in the realms of 3.6 to 3.75 camber, whatever the caster garners me, and then probably about a 16th toe out, so a couple millimeters there. So we left it off here. We've got our strings up. We have to go to 0 toe on both sides, measure our camber, and then start making some changes. So I have the After Dark Speed bump steer kit and the AMT camber plate things. So let's get the toe set to 0. Let's get some measurements, and then we can go from there and see what changes what as we go along.
Power by the Ocho.
So I like to keep notes on the car when I can. So you'll see here I have an out that tells me which way to turn the tie rod to get toe out, and then I turn it the other direction to get toe in. I also like to mark my stick that says more toe out. So that means that if I have a higher number here than I do here, then I know I'm toed out and I don't have to think about it. I can just do it. And I also mark my camber gauges to tell me which way it needs to point, because it could be mistaken to be this way and it does change the readings. But if I do have it this way, everything's good and merry. So right now we are looking at about 23 back here, 21 up here. So we're about 3 to 4 millimeters toed out. So we got to turn the tie rod, well, the bump steer kit, but we're going to turn the tie rod counterclockwise to make sure that we take out that. Now, I know that roughly one turn, or roughly 3 turns, is about 1 millimeter of toe. So we're going to turn it 6 flats, and we will go from there with it. So let's loosen this up. So we got 1 flat, 2 flats, 3 flats, 4, 5, 6. Let's take a reading. Now we are toed in a bunch. So we went way too far. Let's come back. So let's go 1, 2, 3. I'm at 25, 25, 24, 25. So let's go a little bit there. I am at 24, 25, 24, 24. All right. And we will do it to this side as well, which we are sitting at 25, 24. So we're pretty close, but we're towed in just a tiny bit. So again, we will loosen this, and to tow it out, we want to go this direction. And we should be at 24 and 24. All right, so now we've got our tow set to 0. Let's turn our camber gauges on and let's see what our camber is. So this camber gauge has 2 settings, and right now we are at 2.54 over here. So what we're going to want to do is take note of that. And then on this side, we are at 2.18. So we've got a lot of camber to gain. We can check our caster, but it's not really important right now because we need to get our camber dialed in. And once we get our camber dialed in, then we can dial our caster in. One side effect of creating caster is you'll lose camber. And one pro with caster is that you will create negative camber on the side that is being compressed. So you'll still get some camber back from your caster settings. So anyways, so we've got 2 point and 2.1. All right, so let's show how we're going to set our camber. So with the AMT kits, the one thing that we know is what each step is going to do. So right now we are on T4, and we know that we have the settings we had, what, 254, 218. So we know we need to get like 1.5 more degrees of camber. So we're gonna have to make a huge jump. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to, for the sake of showing you how to select T's and S's, I'm going to go from T4 to S2, which means that this is going to be a lot more camber. So the thing that don't be confused by is that just because it's a track setting versus a street setting, that you won't be using a street setting for the track or a track setting for the street. All these really do is tell you that this is the extremes of the T's or the extremes of the S's. So now in some circumstances, you know, if you're in street trim or something like that, then you might not want to exceed S1, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to get you what you need, and maybe T2 is what you want even though you're in street. Or in my case, maybe I want S2 versus T2 or T3 just because that's where I fall. Because I also have drop spindles and things like that. So anyways, I'm going to go from T4 all the way to S2, and I'll show you what that looks like on the car. All right, so here you'll see I have an S and then I have a T. The T is covered by the bolt, but there is a T right underneath here. The S's are going to be aligned with these, and then the T's are going to be aligned with these. So underneath this, you'll see I have T4, this would be T5, T3, T2, T1. And it'll probably make a lot more sense once you have it on your car and you see what the control arms are doing when you would make these adjustments. So for our sake, since we're gonna go to S2, we need to use this hole and we need this 2 to be out here. Now the AMT instructions also have a good representation of how these are selected, but anyways, for our sake, we're gonna go S2. So we need to put the bolt needs to go in here, and we need this to be alongside here. All right, so let me put these tools somewhere. So you'll see I pull this out. This is going to go into S, and then we put this back in. And on the back side, this is going to also go in the S hole. And then, so what you'll notice is in order to get S2 on this, we need the control arm to go out, which if you can imagine now the control arm's in, and that's why we have such a low camber. So as we push the control arm out, that's going to essentially give us more camber on the tire. If my hand was the tire, we're essentially tilting it outward, and that's how we create that. And that's why the S2 is more than the T, even though T is a track versus the street value. But you can put a pry bar up in here and push it out a little bit until you can get it to your desired setting. There you go. It pops right into place. Do the same on the back side. Should fall right in if you're right on. And we will just tighten this up enough to hold it so we can take some measurements. I'm going to do the other side, and once that's done, I will come back. Okay, so I've set that back to S2 on all of the front lower control arms. Now you'll notice that that also messes with our toe again. So everything that we do is going to affect the other settings. And I say that because as we go through, what you'll notice is that we're going to look for settings way out here, and then we're going to start dialing it in and dialing it in. And eventually we're going to get to a place where each little change doesn't affect the other so greatly, and then that's probably where you want to stop. Because right now we went a huge sweep and change. We've changed a lot of stuff, and then we're going to get a little bit closer, and then we're going to get a little bit closer. But as we do that, everything's going to change with it, so we've got to change everything at the same time. So now we know that our toe is way out of whack now. It had a lot of toe in. So now we're going to set the toe to 0 again, and then we're going to take our camber readings, because our toe is going to affect the camber a little bit as well. All right, so here you're going to see that I'm going to make the change to go to 0 toe. I have a lot of toe in, so I need to go clockwise to toe this out, and then you'll see that pro stick move. And what we're trying to do is get that back to be 0 toe, which is probably going to be, it's not going to be very clear for you just because of the angle of the camera, but you get the idea. Yeah, keep going this way. Let's see what that is. So here we are about 21 here and about 22 here. So we can go, let's see where our flat is. We want to go toe out just a little bit, so let's put this flat up. Let's see what that does for us. And that gives us about 21 exact and about 22 still. So we go one more flat. Let's see what that does. So now we're about 21 and a half-ish, 21 and a half-ish. So we have 0 toe here again. So I'm going to go do the same to the other side, and we'll come back and we'll take a camber reading. All right, so we're back to 0 toe there. And on this side, we've got 3.7. So you can see it jumping between 3.68, 3.7. So we'll call it 3.7. We'll mark that down. And so what I do is I just make a note here of all of the changes. So this is where we started. Now we're at 3.7 with 0 toe. And we are on S2, S2, and 0 toe. And let's see what our camber is over here. And we're at 3.28, substantially lower. So we're at 3.28. So there's a reason for this on my car, and that's because I have some plates welded in, and they're not going to be even. And so this one might be a little bit wider which is going to take away some of my camber that this side's not going to have. So that's why I think my car's a little bit lopsided, and I have to make provisions for that in a way of adding, taking away caster, or taking away or adding caster and taking away camber, or vice versa. So I might not be mirrored on both sides. So our next step would be to see, how do I want to create my camber? So what I could do is I can go back to my AMT chart and we can see what's our next set. So it's going to be S1 or S2. So what we could do is go S1 on both, and then we can add shims to take that back away. So the shims that AMT has, you can take away this type of measurements from it. So an 1/8 inch thick shim will take away 0.6 degrees of camber. So we could use the shims to decrease our camber. So why don't we go and add S1, and then we were going to use shims to figure out our camber. So let's do that. We're going to go to S1. All right, so we've got those changes made. Now we need to take some measurements. So now we're at 4.5 degrees over here. 4.5. Might be a little much. And we are at 4.36. So we tightened the gap up. 4.36. So now we could add some shims. So with the AMT kit, like I said before, it comes with some shims. And these shims, let me get to that page and show you what they do. So you can use shims, and it comes with all of these sizes. So you can use an 1/8, a 1/16, or a 32nd to take away roughly this amount of camber. Now, the other thing to think about too is we can also use shims to create some more caster, which is also, by adding some caster, we'll take away some of that camber as well. So we can kind of kill some of this camber off just in shims and in caster. So this is where I was talking about, you have to start up here and then spire yourself down, because after we made that other change, we had to zero toe it out again. As we made the next change, we had to zero toe it out again. Check camber, zero it out, check camber, zero it out. So now we are at a pretty high camber setting, and we need to take it away now. So what we're going to do is add some shims to remove some of that camber. So I'm going to try to take away about a 0.6 degrees of that camber, which will put us at 3.9-ish. And remember, we're shooting for, what did I say, 3.5 to 3.75 is where I want to be. So if we do the 0.6, that'll put us at 3.9. And as we add some caster back into the car, that will also take away some more of that. So that's what we're going to do now. We are going to add an 1/8 inch of shims to the front and the back. Now, let me show you something. Let's go to the car.
Powered by the Ocho.